The rain started somewhere around Joint Base Lewis McChord and didn't let up. I'd been driving north out of Tacoma for maybe 20 minutes, watching the wipers drag water across the windshield in those streaks that never quite clear. My tools rattled in the back every time I changed lanes. Picks, tension wrenches, the plug spinner I'd bought used off a guy in Olympia. All of it loose in the nylon bag because I'd left in a hurry and hadn't bothered to secure anything. The gas light had been on since Fife. I kept meaning to pull off, find a Shell or a 76, top up the tank. But every exit I passed felt like it would cost me another 10 minutes I didn't have, and I was already cutting it close. So I stayed in the right lane and told myself the van had another 30 miles in it easy. Probably 40 if I didn't gun it. My eyes kept jumping to the clock on the dash. 11:03, 11:07, 11:12. I wasn't going to make it by 11:30. That was pretty much guaranteed at this point. Mom had said 11, which meant she'd expected me at 10:45, which meant showing up any later than 11:15 was going to start the night off wrong. That's how it worked with her. You were early or you were making a statement. I figured I'd text her when I got closer, let her know I hit traffic or something. The thing is, I didn't hit traffic yet. Not real traffic. Just the usual southbound crawl on the other side of the median, headlights smearing past in the rain. Northbound was clear enough. I could have made decent time if I'd left earlier, if I hadn't spent 40 minutes sitting in my apartment telling myself I didn't have to go at all. But I did have to go. That was the problem. I tried not to think about why. The tools clattered again when I merged left to pass a semi-hauling container freight. The sound used to bother me. Now it was just part of the drive. I'd been running locksmith calls for 6 years, ever since I finished the apprenticeship and bought the van off a guy who'd retired to Spokane. White Chevy Express with a dent in the passenger door and 140,000 miles on it. I'd repainted the side panel myself, put my number on it in vinyl stick-on letters. Didn't bother with a company name. Just locksmith and the 10 digits. Most of my work was car lockouts and apartment deadbolts, sometimes a filing cabinet at an office park or a panic bar that wouldn't latch. I didn't do safes much. Didn't have the patience for dial manipulation, and the electronic ones were all app-connected now anyway. Half the time, people just reset them with a YouTube video. Tonight wasn't a job, not technically, but I was treating it like one. That was the only way I was going to get through it. 3 weeks ago, I'd been up in Shoreline, standing outside a motel that smelled like mildew and burnt coffee, waiting for a King County detective to tell me I could go inside. The place was called the Shoreline Inn, which was optimistic. It was a one-story strip with exterior doors painted turquoise and a neon sign that only lit up the first 4 letters. They'd found Jeffrey in room 18. The detective was a woman maybe 10 years older than me, short gray hair and a tired face. She didn't say much, just asked if I was Isaac Burgess, asked if I could identify the deceased, and led me into a room that was smaller than I expected. Tan carpet, a bed with the covers half pulled off. Jeffrey on his back near the bathroom, one arm stretched out, the other curled against his ribs. I'd said yes. That's Jeffrey Burgess. That's my brother. She'd nodded and written something on a clipboard and told me someone would be in touch about next steps. I'd left and sat in my van in the parking lot for maybe 30 minutes before I started the engine. The funeral had been closed casket. Mom's call. She'd wanted it open, actually, but the funeral director had talked her out of it. Too much time between when they found him and when they released the body, he'd said. Better to remember him another way. I didn't argue. I'd already seen him. The rain got heavier somewhere past Federal Way. I turned the wipers up a notch and checked the fuel gauge again. Still hovering right above empty. The little orange light glowing steady. I should have filled up. Mom had called me 4 days ago, Tuesday night around 8. I'd been on the couch with leftover teriyaki from the place on Pacific Avenue, watching something I wasn't paying attention to. When her name came up on my phone, I almost didn't answer. but I knew if I didn't, she'd just call again and again. So I answered. She didn't say hi, just, I found Jeffrey's phone. I'd muted the TV. Okay. It was in a box in the garage. I was going through his things and there it was, at the bottom, under some clothes. Okay. I want you to unlock it. I'd rubbed my eyes. That's me. Mom, I'm a locksmith. I don't do phones. You do locks. It's locked. It's not the same thing. Isaac. Her voice had that edge it always got when she thought I was being difficult. I need to know what's on it. Why? Because he's my son. I hadn't said anything for a second. Then, he was using pretty heavy for the past year. I don't think anything on that phone is going to make you feel better. I didn't ask how it would make me feel. I asked you to unlock it. I'd thought about saying no. Thought about telling her to take it to one of those tech repair places in the mall, let them deal with it. But I knew she wouldn't. She'd just keep calling, keep pushing. That was her thing. She didn't let go. So I'd said fine. I'd come up Friday night, late, after my last call. She'd said 11. I'd said I'd try. Now it was 11:17, and I was still 15 miles out, maybe more, depending on where the traffic started to stack up near Northgate. I reached for my phone to text her, then decided against it. Better to just deal with it when I got there. I wasn't great at diffusing things ahead of time anyway. The thing about treating it like a job was that jobs had steps, a process. You showed up, assessed the problem, picked the right tool, solved it. You didn't get emotional about a stuck deadbolt. You didn't take it personally when a keyway was full of dirt or someone had jammed a paperclip in the cylinder. You just dealt with it and moved on. I was going to unlock Jeffrey's phone the same way. Show up, assess, solve, leave. I didn't need to talk about what was on it. Didn't need to sit in Mom's kitchen while she scrolled through his messages and tried to piece together the past year. I wasn't going to get into another argument about whether I could have done more, whether I should have been checking in on him, whether I'd been too harsh when I told him I couldn't keep lending him money. I'd unlock the phone, hand it over, walk out before it started. That was the plan. The clock said 11:26 when I-5 turned into a parking lot. I came around a long curve just past Linwood and suddenly there were brake lights everywhere, a solid line of red stretching north as far as I could see, hazard blinkers going off in clusters, turning the wet road into this blinking tunnel of stopped cars. I hit my own brakes harder than I meant to and felt the van skid just a little before the tires caught. Then I was stopped. Just sitting there, wipers going, engine idling. I checked the mirrors, nobody behind me yet, but there would be in a second. I flipped my hazards on and tried to see what the holdup was. Couldn't tell. Too much rain, too many cars in the way. Maybe an accident up ahead, maybe construction, maybe nothing. Sometimes traffic just locked up for no reason and then cleared 5 minutes later. I looked at the fuel gauge. The needle was below the empty line now. The orange light still on. I'd been ignoring it for the past 40 miles, telling myself I had enough to make it to Mom's place in Edmonds and then hit a gas station on the way back. But now I was stuck, idling, burning whatever I had left. I turned the engine off. The wipers stopped mid-stroke. The silence felt weird, just the rain drumming on the roof and the faint tick of the cooling engine and the muffled sound of someone's stereo 2 cars up. I sat there and watched the clock roll over to 11:27. This was going to be a long night. Traffic didn't move for 6 minutes. I counted them on the dashboard clock while rain hammered the windshield and the van ticked and cooled around me. 11:31 became 11:37. The brake lights ahead stayed solid red. At 11:38, cars started rolling forward, not fast. Maybe 10 feet, then stop, another 20 feet. Stop again. I turned the key and the engine caught on the second try. The fuel light glowed orange and accusing. I crept forward with everyone else. The gap between me and the Honda ahead opened and closed. Open, close. My right foot barely touched the gas. I was burning fumes at this point. Probably had a gallon left, maybe less. That's when I saw the first detour sign. Orange with black arrows pointing right toward an exit I didn't recognize. State Route 526 East. I'd driven I-5 North plenty of times, but I usually stayed on the highway straight through to Edmonds. The sign said, "Accident ahead, seek alternate route." I checked the fuel gauge again. The needle sat a full tick below the empty line now. Another sign, same orange, same arrow. All lanes closed. Exit 526. The Honda ahead of me signaled right and merged toward the exit. A Subaru followed. Then a pickup with a camper shell that had a Mariner's sticker peeling off the back window. I figured I had two choices. Sit in, stop traffic until I ran out of gas completely and had to call a tow truck, or take the exit and try to route around whatever crash was blocking the highway. Maybe find a gas station on the side streets, fill up, get back on I-5 farther north. It felt smart for about 30 seconds. I flipped my turn signal and followed the pickup onto the exit ramp. The ramp curved down and away from the highway, and I lost sight of the backup behind me. Just wet pavement and a blinking yellow light at the bottom where the ramp met a two-lane road. The pickup turned left. I didn't know the area well enough to have a strong opinion, but left felt wrong. The water was west. Edmonds was north. I needed to curve back east and then north to pick up the highway again. I turned right. The road was called Mukilteo Speedway, according to a green street sign I passed. Didn't look like a speedway. Looked like a regular suburban road with car dealerships and fast food places on both sides. Most of them were closed. The Taco Bell drive-thru was still lit, but I didn't see any cars. I checked the odometer. I'd gone 0.8 miles since the exit, no gas stations yet. The speedway kept pulling me west. I tried to turn north onto a side street called Cyrus Way, but it dead-ended after 2 blocks at a chain-link fence with a gravel lot behind it. I had to reverse and go back to the speedway. 1.4 miles. Still no gas. The buildings got smaller. Fewer streetlights. The road narrowed and the rain picked up again. Or maybe I was just closer to the water and the wind was pushing it harder. I passed a park on my left, just dark trees and a picnic shelter, then a stretch of nothing, then a church with a white steeple. I realized I was going downhill, 2.1 miles. The road curved left and suddenly I could see water ahead, black and flat under the rain. Puget Sound, probably. The speedway became Front Street, and Front Street ran parallel to the shoreline. I saw a bait shop. A locksmith could probably pick the lock on a bait shop cooler, but that didn't help me with an empty gas tank. I should have turned around. I knew that. But I also knew I didn't have enough fuel to backtrack 2 miles uphill, and then navigate all the way to Edmonds. I kept going. Figured maybe the road would loop back up and connect to something useful. It didn't. Front Street funneled me straight toward the Mukilteo Ferry Terminal. I'd been on the Mukilteo Clinton run a few times, once for a job on Whidbey Island, twice just driving around when I needed to think. The terminal was usually busy. Cars stacked up in 4 or 5 lanes, people leaning against their bumpers, gulls circling the lot. Not tonight. The lanes were empty. All of them. The pavement was wet and black, and the painted arrows pointing toward the dock gleamed under a handful of overhead lights. The toll booths were dark except for one on the far right. I could see a figure behind the glass, but I couldn't make out details from this distance. The terminal building itself was closed. No lights in the windows, no cars in the employee lot. But there was a ferry. It sat at the dock with the car ramp down and the deck lights on. I could hear the engines. That low, steady hum that ferries make when they're idling, a sound you feel in your chest as much as here. The boat looked operational. The running lights were green and red on the sides, white on the mast. I stopped the van just past the entrance and looked at the reader board. It was mounted on a tall metal post near the toll booths, the kind with yellow bulbs that flip through letters and numbers to show departure times and route information. Usually it said something like, Clinton, 11:45 p.m., space available. This one didn't say that. The bulbs were flickering. Not all of them, just some. They'd flip partway through a letter and then stop, or they'd show a number and then blank out. I watched for 10 seconds and couldn't make out a single complete word. Just fragments. An M, maybe a 7. A lowercase r, which didn't make sense because the board didn't use lowercase. I put the van in park and sat there with the engine running. The fuel gauge hadn't moved, still buried below empty. The figure in the toll booth shifted. I saw an arm move. Then the arm lifted and waved me forward. I didn't have a lot of options. I was out of gas, out of time, and out of roads that led anywhere except back uphill into nothing. If the ferry was running, maybe I could get on, get to Clinton, find a gas station on the island. It wasn't Edmonds, but it was somewhere. I eased the van forward and rolled up to the booth. The guy inside was maybe mid-40s, stocky, with dark hair cropped close to his skull. He wore a Washington State Ferry's uniform jacket and a headset looped over one ear. He didn't look up, just tapped something on a keyboard I couldn't see and kept his eyes on a screen below the glass. I rolled down my window. Cold air and the smell of salt water came in. "Hey," I said, "is this boat running tonight?" He didn't answer, just reached under the counter and pulled out a piece of cardstock. He slid it through the slot at the bottom of the booth glass. I picked it up. It was a ticket, not the normal paper receipt you get on Washington State ferries. This was heavier. Cream-colored cardstock, about the size of an index card. The front had a single line of text printed in black. Passenger one way. No route, no date, no time. I turned it over. The back was covered in small print. Rules, maybe. Terms. I skimmed the first few lines. Passengers must remain in designated areas during transit. Deck access restricted after departure. No refunds, no transfers, no exceptions. The next line made me stop. Passengers acknowledging carriage agree to waive claims arising from delay, rerouting, or failure to debark at intended destination. I read it again. Failure to debark at intended destination. My stomach tightened. Not a lot, just enough to notice. I looked up at the guy in the booth. He still hadn't made eye contact. "What kind of sailing is this?" I asked. I looked up at the guy in the booth. He still hadn't made eye contact, just kept staring at something below the glass, probably another screen. "What kind of sailing is this?" I asked. He tapped twice on whatever keyboard he had down there. Didn't look up. "Where's this ferry going?" I tried again. He blinked once, slow. Then he tilted his head just enough that I could see his eyes shift toward me without actually meeting mine. "Same place they all go," he said. His voice came out flat, like he'd said the same thing 100 times that week and didn't care if I believed it. "Clinton?" I said. He didn't confirm, just stared at the screen again. I glanced down at the ticket still in my hand. The back was covered in that small print. I'd read some of it already, but now I actually looked at the list of rules printed there. They were formatted like terms and conditions, single-spaced, the kind of thing nobody reads before clicking accept. Passengers must remain on the car deck until the signal horn sounds. No photography or recording devices permitted during transit. Do not respond if your name is heard from the passenger cabins. I stopped on that one. Read it again. Do not respond if your name is heard from the passenger cabins. That wasn't normal. That wasn't even close to normal. What's this about? I held the ticket up to the glass, tapping the line with my thumb. The guy barely glanced at it. Late night protocol. Protocol for what? Reduced staffing. He said it like that explained everything. Like telling me they didn't have enough people working somehow justified a rule about not responding to your own name being called. I kept reading. Ticket must remain visible at all times during crossing. Exit only when a deckhand taps your vehicle hood. I looked back up at him. This is a lot of rules for a normal ferry. It's not a normal ferry. He said it without any edge, just factual. Bored even. Then what is it? Late night sailing. He shifted in his seat, adjusting the headset slightly. You want to wait for the morning schedule. First boat's at 5:45. I checked the dashboard clock, 11:42, 6 hours. I looked at the fuel gauge, still below the E. The engine wasn't even running, and I could feel the van settling into that empty lightness that happens when there's nothing left in the tank. If I tried to turn around now and head back up the hill, I'd maybe make it a quarter mile. Probably less. And even if I did make it back to the speedway, then what? Sit in a closed gas station parking lot until dawn. Call my mom and tell her I couldn't make it because I ran out of gas and got rerouted to a ferry terminal. She'd already be furious I was late. Calling now would just add another hour of her telling me I never prioritized family, that if it had been a paying job I'd have figured it out, that Jeffrey would have made it on time. Jeffrey wouldn't have made it at all. But I wasn't going to say that to her. The guy in the booth hadn't moved. He was waiting for me to decide. Not patiently. Just waiting because that was his job and he didn't care either way. The boat's running now, I said. Yeah. And it's going to Clinton. He didn't answer that one. Just tapped his screen twice more. The gate in front of my van started to lift. Slow. The yellow and black striped arm rose in segments, jerking slightly at each interval like the hydraulics needed maintenance. I looked at the ticket again, at the rules printed there in that tiny font, at the part about waiving claims for failure to debark at intended destination. This was stupid. I knew it was stupid. But sitting in gridlock on the freeway with an empty tank in the rain felt worse. At least this was movement. At least the ferry was running, and Clinton was north. And from there I could figure out a route back to Edmonds. Maybe even get gas on the island and make it to my mom's by 1 or 2 in the morning. Late. But not 6 hours late. I put the van in drive. The guy in the booth didn't say anything, didn't wave me through or tell me to have a safe trip. Just went back to staring at his screen. I rolled forward under the gate. The road sloped down slightly toward the dock, and I could see the ferry more clearly now. It was smaller than the big Edmonds-Kingston boats, older too. The paint on the hull looked faded even under the deck lights, and the car ramp had rust streaks running down the sides. The engines made a low hum that I could feel through the steering wheel once I got close enough. I drove onto the ramp. The metal grating clanged under the tires, loud and uneven. The whole ramp flexed slightly with the weight of the van, and I felt that dip in my stomach that always happens when you're driving onto something that's floating. The car deck opened up ahead. It smelled like salt and exhaust and wet metal. The same smell every ferry has, but stronger here. More concentrated. The overhead lights were fluorescent and uneven, some of them flickering in a rhythm that didn't quite sync up. There were other vehicles already parked. Not many. Maybe 6 or 7 total, scattered across the deck in different lanes. A sedan, a pickup truck, an SUV with a bike rack. They weren't lined up neatly like on a normal sailing, just spread out, random. A deckhand stepped into view on my left. She was wearing reflective gear and gloves, a knit cap pulled low against the rain. She had a flashlight in one hand, but wasn't using it, just holding it against her leg. She pointed toward a lane in the middle of the deck with 2 fingers, then stepped back without waiting to see if I followed. I turned into the lane, pulled forward until I was lined up roughly with the other cars, then killed the engine. The silence hit first. No more engine noise, no more wipers. Just the low hum of the ferry engines below and the rain drumming on the metal roof above the deck. I sat there for a second, hands still on the wheel. Then I pulled out my phone. No service. I'd expected that. Ferries always had bad signal in the terminal, especially down on the car deck with all the metal around. But I checked anyway. Held the phone up near the windshield, watched the bars. Nothing. Just a little circle spinning like it was searching. I tried again. Same result. I put the phone on the passenger seat and looked down at the ticket still in my hand. Ticket must remain visible at all times during crossing. I set it on the dashboard, right in the center where anyone walking by could see it through the windshield. The cream-colored cardstock stood out against the black plastic. It looked official. Old-fashioned, but official. Like it mattered. Like it was the only thing keeping me in the right category. I didn't know what the wrong category was. Didn't want to find out. 2 spaces over, a truck door opened. I looked up. A guy climbed out of a pickup, mid-20s maybe, wearing a Seahawks hoodie with the hood up. He was tall, broad shoulders, and he moved like he was annoyed before he even got both feet on the deck. He had his phone out, held it up high, turned in a slow circle. "You've got to be kidding me," he said. Not to me, just to the air. Loud enough that I heard it through the closed windows of the van. He walked a few steps toward the railing, still holding his phone up. Stopped. Checked the screen. Shook his head. "No signal," he said, louder this time. He was looking around now, like he was trying to find someone to complain to. This is insane. What kind of ferry doesn't have signal? Every ferry, I thought, but I didn't say it. He walked back toward his truck, still holding the phone up at different angles. Tried the other side of the deck. Same result, probably. He stopped near the stairs that led up to the passenger cabin and tried again. Then he turned and looked right at my van. I looked away. Kept my eyes forward, hands on the wheel even though the engine was off. I heard his footsteps, boots on wet metal. He knocked on my window. I waited a second, then rolled it down, just a few inches. "Hey man, you getting anything?" He held up his phone. "No," I said. "Yeah, me neither." He leaned in slightly, like he wanted to see my phone on the seat. "You think it's just the terminal or the whole boat?" "Probably the whole boat." "That's messed up." He straightened, looked back at the stairs. "I was supposed to text my girlfriend like 20 minutes ago. She's gonna think I bailed." I didn't respond to that. He stood there another second, waiting for me to say something else. When I didn't, he shrugged. "Whatever. Guess I'll try upstairs." He walked toward the stairs. I almost said something. Almost told him the ticket said to stay on the car deck, but I didn't. It wasn't my job to read his ticket for him, and I didn't feel like explaining why I was taking the rules on a weird late-night ferry seriously. He disappeared up the stairs. I rolled the window back up and sat there, looking at the ticket on my dashboard. Passengers must remain on the car deck until the signal horn sounds. The guy hadn't even glanced at his ticket. Probably shoved it in his pocket or left it on his passenger seat. That's what most people did. I kept mine where it could be seen. The guy in the Seahawks hoodie didn't go up the stairs right away. He stopped at the base of them and raised his phone again, holding it out in front of him at arm's length. I could see the screen glowing in the dark. He swept it slowly across the car deck, filming the empty spaces and the vehicles parked at weird angles, and probably my van too, like he wanted proof of how off this whole thing was. I remembered the rule on the back of the ticket: no photography or recording devices during transit. I sat there waiting for someone to stop him. The deckhand who directed me to park was still somewhere on the deck. I'd seen her walk toward the bow after I pulled in. She had to be able to see this guy, or someone else. There had to be crew watching. That's how ferries worked. Nobody came. The guy kept filming. He turned in a slow circle, phone raised, and I could see his mouth moving, probably narrating for whoever was going to watch this later. Maybe his girlfriend. Maybe just his feed. People recorded everything now. I'd had customers film me picking locks because they didn't trust I wouldn't damage their doors, or because they wanted to post it somewhere with a caption about being locked out at 2 a.m. I looked at my ticket on the dashboard. The rule was right there. No recording devices. It didn't say, "Please don't," or "We'd prefer." It just said no. The guy lowered his phone and looked at the screen. He tapped it a couple times. Then his whole posture changed. It wasn't gradual. It was immediate. 1 second he was standing loose and casual, annoyed but not worried. The next second he went rigid. His shoulders pulled back. His head tilted slightly to the left. His arm with the phone dropped to his side but stayed stiff, not relaxed. His phone screen had gone black. I could see that from here. No glow. He stood completely still for maybe 3 seconds. Then he turned toward the stairwell. Not a normal turn. Stiff, mechanical, like something had grabbed his attention and yanked it in that direction, and he didn't have a choice about following. He walked toward the stairs. The walk was wrong, unsteady. His feet moved, but his upper body stayed too rigid. I thought about asking if he was okay. I had my hand on the door handle, but I didn't open it. He reached the stairwell and pulled the door open. It was a heavy metal door with a small rectangular window. He stepped through without looking back. The door swung shut behind him with a solid clunk that I heard even through my closed windows. The car deck felt too quiet after that. The Ferry engines were still running. I could hear the low, steady hum and feel the faint vibration through the van's frame. Rain was still hitting the metal roof overhead in irregular taps, but it felt too quiet anyway. Wrong kind of quiet. I looked at the other vehicles. The sedan, the pickup the Seahawks guy had come from, the SUV with the bike rack. I couldn't see anyone in them, windows too dark or fogged. Maybe they were all still inside. Maybe they'd gotten out and I hadn't noticed. Maybe they'd gone upstairs too. I gripped my ticket tighter. The cardstock bent slightly under my thumb. I smoothed it out and set it back on the dashboard center where it would be visible through the windshield. Visible to anyone checking. I needed it visible. It felt like a key that had to stay in a lock. That was the thought I had. Specific. If I took it away or put it in my pocket or let it slide onto the floor, the lock would disengage. I didn't know what that meant. What would happen? But I knew I needed to keep it exactly where it was. The first horn sounded, low and heavy. It came from somewhere above and forward, probably the pilot house. It wasn't the short blast ferries usually gave when leaving the dock. It was longer. 5 seconds at least. Deep enough that I felt it in my chest. The ferry eased away from the dock. I felt the movement, not a lurch or anything sudden. Just a slow pulling sensation as the engines engaged and the boat started backing out. I couldn't see the dock from where I was parked, but I knew we were moving. The angle of the lights shifted slightly through the windshield. For a few minutes, it almost felt normal. The engines settled into a steady rhythm. The rain softened, not stopping, just easing off to a lighter drizzle that I could barely hear. I looked past the railing on the port side and saw water, black and flat. No waves, no whitecaps, just smooth, dark surface stretching out into nothing. It reminded me of crossings I'd taken years ago, 6 years back, maybe 7. I used to do service calls on Whidbey Island when I first started locksmithing, residential stuff mostly. People locked out of summer cabins or needing deadbolts replaced on rental properties. I'd take the Clinton ferry over and spend the day driving up and down the island, hitting 3 or 4 calls before catching the last boat back. The crossings were quiet in the off-season. Not empty like this, but quiet. I'd stay in the van and eat whatever I'd packed and watch the water slide past. This felt like that for maybe 3 minutes. The rain kept softening. The engines hummed. The water stayed flat. I started thinking maybe this was fine. Just a late-night sailing with weird rules and bad signage and a creepy ticket. I'd get to Clinton and drive off and find a gas station and figure out how to get back to Edmonds. Maybe I'd call my mom. Maybe I'd just text. Maybe I'd wait until morning and deal with the fallback then. Then I heard the voice. It came from above, from the passenger cabins, not loud, not shouting. just clear enough to carry down through the rain and the engine noise and the metal roof over the car deck. It said my name. Isaac. I froze. The voice had Jeffrey's rhythm. Exact. The way he used to say my name when he wanted something. Not dragging it out, not clipping it short. Just 2 syllables with a slight rise on the second one. A question that wasn't quite a question. I didn't move. My hands were on the steering wheel. I didn't remember putting them there. My foot was off the pedals. Engine was off. I was just sitting in a parked van on a moving ferry listening to my dead brother say my name from somewhere above me. The ticket sat on the dashboard. Still visible. Still exactly where I'd put it. I kept my eyes forward. Didn't look up toward the passenger cabins. Didn't turn my head. The rule came back. The one I'd read on the ticket. Do not respond if your name is heard from passenger cabins. I didn't respond. I sat completely still and refused to move. I stared at the stairwell door. The small rectangular window showed nothing but dim light behind it. My hands stayed on the wheel. I didn't turn my head. I didn't look up toward where the voice came from. The voice stopped. I kept my eyes forward and counted 3 seconds. 4, 5. Then I heard the second sound. It was faint, muffled. It came from above, probably through the ventilation system or through gaps in the deck plating. It sounded like someone crying. Not loud sobbing, quiet crying. The kind someone does when they're trying not to be heard. It drifted down through the metal and the rain and the engine noise, and it had the same rhythm Jeffrey used to have when he cried in his room after Mom yelled at him. That specific hitching breath between each sound. I didn't move. The ticket sat on the dashboard exactly where I put it. I looked at it instead of looking up. The cream-colored cardstock, the black text. Passenger, one way. I focused on those words and nothing else. The crying faded. Maybe it stopped. Maybe the ferry's angle changed and the sound went somewhere else. I didn't know. I kept staring at the ticket. My chest felt tight, not painful, just compressed. I made myself breathe in through my nose and out through my mouth 3 times. That helped a little. A deckhand walked past the front of my van. I saw him through the windshield. He was shorter than me, probably 5'9", wiry build, dark hair cropped short. He wore deck coveralls with reflective stripes and had a utility knife clipped to his belt along with a radio. He was checking equipment. He moved methodically from one tie-down point to the next, tugging on chains and testing tension. Professional. Calm. He glanced at my van as he passed. His eyes went to the ticket on my dashboard first, then to me. He didn't stop walking, but his pace slowed just enough that I noticed. I rolled my window down. Cold air came in. Salt smell. Diesel fumes. "Hey," I said. He stopped. He turned and looked at me without coming closer. His face was calm, tired maybe, hard to tell in the overhead lights. "You okay?" he asked. "Yeah," I said. "I'm fine." He didn't say anything. He just looked at me. His eyes went to the ticket again, then back to my face. "You heard something," he said. Not a question. I didn't answer right away. I thought about lying. I thought about saying no, everything's fine, just waiting for the boat to dock. But that felt stupid. He already knew. "Yeah," I said. He nodded once. He looked past me toward the stairwell, then back. "Stay down here," he said. "I wasn't planning to go up." Good. He shifted his weight. He looked like he wanted to keep moving, but hadn't finished what he came over to say. People who go upstairs on these sailings don't come back with the same amount of time. I stared at him. "What does that mean?" I asked. He didn't answer. He looked at the deck plating near my front tire. His jaw moved slightly like he was chewing the inside of his cheek. "What do you mean? The same amount of time?" I asked again. "Just what I said." "That doesn't explain anything." "I know." His voice was quiet, almost kind. He met my eyes again. I'm not supposed to say more than that. Who says you're not supposed to? He didn't answer. He looked at the ticket on my dashboard one more time, then stepped back. Keep that visible, he said. Don't put it in your pocket. Don't let it fall. I wasn't going to. Good, he said again. Then he turned and walked toward the bow, continuing his equipment check like the conversation never happened. I rolled the window back up. My hands were cold. I rubbed them together and put them back on the wheel. The plastic felt solid, real. I focused on that. I tried to simplify the situation into a plan. That's what I do with locks. Break the problem into steps. Don't think about the whole mechanism at once. Just the next pin, the next tumbler. Step 1, stay in the car. Step 2, wait for the ferry to reach Clinton. Step 3, drive off. Step 4, find a gas station and fill the tank. Step 5, figure out the route to Everett from the island side. I could take the Deception Pass Bridge north and loop back around. It'd add an hour, maybe more, but I'd have fuel and I wouldn't have to get back on a ferry. Simple, straightforward. I looked at the ticket again. It stayed where I put it. The rules on the back were still there. I didn't need to flip it over to remember them. I already read them twice. The plan felt better than thinking about the voice. Better than thinking about Jeffrey. Better than thinking about what the deckhand meant when he said people don't come back with the same amount of time. I didn't know what that meant. I still don't. The ferry kept moving. The engines hummed. The rain had stopped completely now. I looked out the driver's side window and saw the water. Flat. Black. No waves. Then the ferry slowed. The change in vibration came first. The engines shifted from their steady hum to something lower, quieter. The whole boat felt different under me. Not stopped, just slower. Like we were easing into a turn or adjusting course. I checked my phone. Still no signal. The time said 11:51. I looked out the windshield toward the bow. I couldn't see the pilot house from where I was parked, but I could see the railing and the darkness beyond it. No lights. I leaned forward and looked harder. The Sound always has lights. Shoreline lights from Whidbey, distant glow from Everett or Mukilteo behind us, running lights from other boats. Something. I didn't see anything, just black. Flat water and black sky, and no separation between them. I turned and looked out the side window. Same thing. No glow on the horizon. No distant sparkle of houses or docks or anything. The ferry slowed further. The engines dropped to an idle. We were barely moving now. Then the overhead lamps dimmed. Not all at once. Gradually, like someone turning a dial. They went from white to yellow. Not warm yellow, sickly yellow. The kind of light you get from old bulbs that are about to burn out. I looked at the sedan parked 3 spaces ahead. Under the new light, it looked worse. Older. The paint looked faded and the chrome looked tarnished. I could see rust along the wheel wells that I didn't notice before. I looked at the pickup truck 2 spaces over. Same thing. It looked like it had been sitting in a field for 6 months. Dull paint, dirty windows. The SUV with the bike rack looked even worse. The rack was bent. One of the bikes was missing a front wheel. I looked down at my own hands on the steering wheel. The light made my skin look gray. I didn't like it. The stairwell door opened. The sound cut through the engine noise and the silence. Metal scraping metal. Hinges that needed oil. I looked. The guy in the Seahawks hoodie came back down. He walked slowly, stiff. His hands were at his sides, empty. No phone. His hoodie was soaked, completely drenched. Water dripped from the fabric onto the deck plating. It looked like he'd walked through heavy rain. It wasn't raining on the car deck. He stopped at the base of the stairs. He turned his head left, then right, searching. Then he saw my van. He locked onto it. His whole body reoriented. He started walking toward me. His face looked wrong, pale. His eyes were too wide. His mouth hung open slightly. He reached the front of my van and stopped. He stared at me through the windshield. I didn't roll the window down. He raised both hands. He pressed them against the glass. His palms left wet prints. He started mouthing words. No sound, just his lips moving. I couldn't make out what he was saying at first. Then I recognized the shape. "Help me," he said it again. "Help me." Then he pointed upward with his right hand, straight up, toward the passenger cabins. He mouthed more words. "You have to come up." I shook my head. He pressed harder against the glass. His fingers splayed wide. He mouthed the words again. "You have to come up. Please." I looked at his eyes. They weren't right. The pupils were too big, black circles with just a thin ring of green around them. He kept pointing, kept mouthing the same thing. "Please, you have to come up." I didn't move. I stayed seated, kept both hands on the wheel. The ticket was still on the dashboard where I'd put it, visible through the windshield, but I reached up and pressed it against the inside of the glass with my palm. Held it there. I don't know why exactly, just felt like if I let go it might slide down or fall or disappear. The guy in the Seahawks hoodie was still standing at my hood, still pressing his hands against the windshield, still mouthing words I could see but not hear. His eyes were wrong, too wide, pupils too big, like he'd been in the dark too long and they hadn't adjusted back. Then his expression changed. The pleading stopped. His mouth closed. His hands slid down the glass slowly, leaving wet streaks. And when they dropped to his sides, they were fists. His face went blank for maybe 2 seconds. Then it twisted into something that looked like anger but moved wrong. Too fast, like someone had turned a dial. He pulled his right hand back and slammed it against my hood. The sound was loud enough that I flinched, a flat metallic bang that echoed across the car deck. He left a wet handprint on the white paint. I could see it clearly under the yellow overhead lights, 5 fingers spread wide, water pooling at the edges. He hit it again, same spot, harder. Then he turned and walked down the row. I watched him move to the sedan 3 spaces ahead. He slapped that hood too. Same motion, same force. The sound carried. Then he went to the pickup truck, hit that one, then the SUV with the bike rack. He worked his way down the line methodically, striking each hood once, leaving wet prints on every vehicle. I looked at the other cars. Most of the windows were too dark or fogged to see through. But in the sedan, I could make out a shape behind the wheel. A driver, sitting there, staring forward, doing nothing. Same in the pickup. The guy in the Seahawks hoodie kept going. He reached the last vehicle I could see, a small hatchback near the bow, and hit that hood too. Then he stopped, stood there, turned in a slow circle like he was looking for something. I pressed the ticket harder against the glass. The second horn sounded. It came from above and forward, same as the first one, but this time it didn't stop. It just kept going. A low, sustained blast that made my teeth hurt and my jaw clench and my chest vibrate. I counted 5 seconds, then 10, then 15. It kept going. And over it I heard another voice. This one was higher, sharper. It came from the same direction as before, from the passenger cabins above. But it was different. Not Jeffrey's rhythm, not his cadence. It was my mom's. I recognized the exact pattern. The way she said my name when she was panicking, when she needed something right now and couldn't wait and didn't care if I was busy or tired or done talking. "Isaac, I'm alone down here. I don't know what to do. I need you to unlock this phone. I need you right now, Isaac, please. I can't do this by myself." The words ran together. No pauses. Just one continuous spiral of need and panic and demand. My hand moved to the door handle. I didn't think about it. My fingers just went there, wrapped around the cold metal, started to pull. Then I caught it, the mismatch. The voice said, Zeke, please, I need you right now. Zeke. That's what Jeffrey called me. Not Isaac. Zeke. He'd been doing it since he was 6 and couldn't pronounce my full name right. It stuck. He used it his whole life. My mom hated it. She corrected him every single time. Told him my name was Isaac, not Zeke, and he needed to use my real name. She never called me Zeke, not once, not even as a joke. But the voice above was using it. I let go of the door handle. My hand dropped back to my lap. I stared at the ticket pressed against the windshield, the cream-colored cardstock, the black text, bait. That's what it was. Something that knew what Jeffrey sounded like, what my mom sounded like, what I wanted to hear or feared hearing or couldn't ignore. It was using both. The horn finally stopped. The silence after was worse than the sound. I looked down at the ticket in my hand. I'd been holding it against the glass for maybe 2 minutes straight, and my palm was starting to sweat. The cardstock felt damp. I pulled it back, lowered it, looked at the front. I'd read it before. When the guy in the booth handed it to me, it said, "Passenger, one way, no route, no date, no time." Except that's not what it said now. Now it said hold. Just that one word in the same black sans serif font. Hold. And below it, a number. 3. I looked at the painted lines on the deck, the lane I'd parked in. I counted from the starboard side. 1, 2, 3. Lane 3. The ticket had my lane number on it. I heard footsteps, boots on metal grating, slow and even. I looked up. The deckhand was walking toward me. Not the shorter guy with the cropped hair who'd warned me earlier. This was the woman who'd directed me to park when I first drove on. She was still wearing the reflective gear, gloves, knit cap, still holding the unlit flashlight. She stopped at my hood, raised one hand, tapped the metal twice with her knuckles. That was the signal, the rule printed on the back of the ticket. Exit only when deckhand taps vehicle hood. But we weren't at the dock. I looked past her. The water was still black, flat. No shoreline visible, no lights anywhere. She leaned down slightly, made eye contact through the windshield. I rolled the window down, just a few inches. "Hold is your destination," she said. Her voice was calm, even, like she was reciting instructions she'd given 100 times. "What?" I said. "You need to turn the car off fully and wait. We're not at the dock." "Hold is your destination," she repeated. "Turn the car off. Stay in your vehicle. Someone will come for you." She tapped the hood again, once, lightly. It felt like a mark, like she'd just tagged me for something. I looked at the ticket in my hand. Hold. Lane 3. My chest went tight. "No," I said. She didn't respond, just straightened up, stepped back, stood there waiting. I looked at the ticket again, the cream cardstock, the black text. Hold. I tore it in half. The sound was small, just a quick rip. The cardstock was thick enough that it took effort. I tore it again, quarters now. Then I shoved the pieces into my mouth. They tasted like nothing, dry paper, slightly waxy. I chewed twice, felt the cardstock break down into pulp, and swallowed. It stuck in my throat. I swallowed again, harder, felt it go down. The ferry jolted, not a smooth shift. A hard, sudden lurch like something had grabbed the hull and yanked it sideways. I heard metal groan, felt the deck tilt left, then snap back level. The lights changed. The yellow overhead lamps flared white, bright and clean, normal. I looked past the railing. Shoreline lights, dozens of them, small and distant but visible. A line of them running north to south, Whidbey Island. The rain started again. Normal rain, steady tapping on the roof, not the weird silence from before. I looked at the deckhand. She blinked. Once, twice, like she'd just woken up. Then she turned and walked toward the bow without saying anything. I sat there, hands shaking, throat raw. The ferry engines shifted, higher pitch. We were moving faster now, closing in on the dock. I looked at the dashboard. The ticket was gone. I'd swallowed it. My mouth tasted like wet paper and salt. The ferry docked 5 minutes later. A different deckhand came down to the car deck. Older guy, stocky, graying blonde hair. He wore heavy rain gear with reflective striping and didn't look at anyone directly. He walked down the row and tapped hoods. 1, 2, 3. When he got to my van, he tapped twice. Firm, loud. I turned the key. The engine started on the first try. The gate lifted. The car ahead of me rolled forward. I followed. I didn't look for the guy in the Seahawks hoodie. Didn't check my mirrors. Just drove down the ramp off the ferry onto solid pavement. Clinton. I recognized the terminal. I'd been here before, 6 or 7 years ago. Service calls on Whidbey. There was a gas station half a mile up the road. I pulled in, killed the engine, and sat there for maybe 30 seconds before I could move. My phone buzzed. Service, 4 bars, full signal. I had 6 missed calls, all from my mom, 3 voicemails, 2 texts. I didn't listen to them. I got out, filled the tank, paid inside with my card. The guy behind the counter didn't look at me. Back in the van, I pulled up my mom's number. Hit call. She answered on the second ring. Isaac, where the hell are you? I've been calling. I'm not coming, I said. Silence. What? I'm not coming. I'm not unlocking the phone. I'm going home. You said you'd be here by 11. It's almost 1 in the morning. I'm going home, I said again. I hung up. She called back immediately. I didn't answer. I put the phone on the passenger seat, pulled out of the gas station, and started driving south. I made it maybe 40 minutes before I had to pull over. Somewhere past Deception Pass, a turnout overlooking the water. I parked, opened the door, leaned out, and vomited. Wet paper came up. Thick clumps of it mixed with stomach acid. I could see fragments of cream cardstock in the mess on the pavement. I vomited again, then sat there spitting and breathing hard. When I was done, I closed the door, tilted the seat back, locked the doors. I kept my keys in my hand, held them tight. I didn't sleep much. Maybe an hour, maybe less. In the morning, I drove the rest of the way back to Tacoma. I got home around 8, parked in my driveway, went inside, made coffee. Then I pulled up my laptop and searched Washington State Ferry's schedules. Mukilteo to Clinton, last night's date. The last listed sailing departed at 10:30 p.m. I'd reached the terminal at 11:40. I sat there staring at the screen for maybe 5 minutes. Then I closed the laptop. I didn't tell anyone. What would I say?